Welcome to the Seiso Setup podcast. In this episode, we are going to highlight one of my groups, the favorite groups, the GRC team. For those that are newer to the industry, GRC means governance, risk, and compliance. We have a special guest, Emily Smith, one of our Seiso lead security engineers, specializing in GRC continuous compliance and risk management. We're also joined by Seiso COO, Eric Lansbury, and co-host Heidi Patrick. This will be a two-part series featuring Seiso's GRC team and their experience in the industry. Welcome back, Emily. Let's get to it, shall we? For the most part, GRC is seen as a back office compliance function, checklists, audits, evidence gathering, but that's changing fast. Today, GRC teams are expected to advise leadership, understand technology risk, and help guide business decisions. Today, we're talking about how GRC roles are expanding, the skills that matter most, and what this shift means for teams and leaders. Before we dive into the topic of GRC, let's do a fun segment called Risks You Take. How it works. Each person's going to get one or two questions, rapid fire. The first one, what calculated risk have you taken in your career that's paid off? Emily, we'll start with you.
Sure. Thanks, Lauren. I would say probably taking on a role outside of my comfort zone. I was previously in a position where I had years of experience and a strong level of expertise in what I was doing. So rather than remaining in that role, I took a risk by transitioning into a career path where I had limited prior experience. This really allowed me to learn new skills while applying knowledge from my previous role. And because of that, I now have a broader and more well rounded skill set.
And we're glad that road led you to CISO.
Me too.
Eric, how about you? What calculated risk have you taken in your career?
Yeah, it's actually pretty similar to Emily's. I spent a lot of time in IT. I started as help desk. I worked in sysadmin positions and network administration, but I really always enjoyed working on the security and compliance aspect of technology. And back then, it wasn't really an obvious position to be able to move into. But after so many years and moving on to come to work at CISO with Joe and John, the founders here, I actually took a bit of a calculated risk to move on from IT and just do all security. It was probably the best decision I made in my career so far.
We're all so glad it led you here. Heidi, a question for you now. What's a risk you would never take professionally or personally?
Shortcuts. I think shortcuts will eventually surface and usually at the worst time. So I don't want to sacrifice integrity for speed. So, I think me and a lot of our GRC team, we're comfortable moving fast, but we don't want to do it at the expense of the ethics,
That's a
shortcuts.
great life lesson too. All right, for all three of you, one last question. Coffee before a big presentation, wing it or head in with no prep?
I can give you my answer. So, I think preparation is key. The amount of coffee you drink, maybe you should keep it in moderation so you're not too jittery. A little can help, but too much might ruin it. But the more thoroughly you prepare, the more confident and composed you'll feel and appear, and that just kind of ensures a smoother and more effective presentation. So definitely, the more you prepare, the better you're gonna feel and have that presentation go more smoothly.
Definitely a fine caffeinated line there, balance or jittery. Heidi, what about you?
Yeah, no, I'm with Emily. Preparation, definitely. If you are prepared, then you have that confidence to get up there and do it. For the most part, I'll say coffee helps a little to get you that final oomph to get up there and do it.
I love it. Eric, what about you?
All right. So I would say it depends. Really depends on your audience, what you're delivering, especially what type of presentation it is. If it's training and you're kind of molding the minds of tomorrow, you should have a lot of prep and basically go through your training script, but don't be too tight to that script, right? Because you want some people to people interaction, you want some candid conversation. It helps people learn, helps people engage in the topic. And ultimately, if you can teach somebody something new, if you can make them laugh, maybe even, make them emotional and cry, you are doing what you need to do in that presentation, coffee or not, prep or not. So I'm just going to say wing it with minimal prep just to, have a challenge against the other conversations here.
I like it. I knew you were going to be one of the ones to wing it.
I don't always do it. Don't always do it, but there are certain presentations that are better if you just give your knowledge and engage with the audience.
It's a cuff. All right, now into the meat of the podcast. So, questions for my GRC team leads. When you think back, even 3 to 5 years ago, how has your day-to-day role changed? What GRC tasks are you doing less of now? And then why do you think that is? Emily, guess first. Go ahead.
All right. Well, I mean, definitely some elements of my day to day have changed when I look back 3, 5 years ago and even further than that. But there are definitely several aspects that have remained consistent over the years. I've been in consulting for nearly 10 years, so the core nature of the work has remained largely consistent. My responsibilities have evolved, though, in a way that is parallel with changes in technology. And I think what we do will always be necessary, but how we do it will continue to change. So we have to consistently adapt to any emerging risk or new tools, which can be fast moving at times. As for your second question, what GRC tasks I'm doing less of now, I would definitely say I have fewer manual tasks like updating spreadsheets, taking notes, manually confirming controls are in place. And this is really due to advances in automation and AI. Utilizing tools like Vanta or Jada has allowed me and our teams to reduce that effort for that's required for manual verification and made it easier to identify gaps. So by automating that detection piece, we can focus our time and attention on actually resolving the issues. So a lot
Great.
of good changes.
We all know how Eric feels about spreadsheets.
Yeah.
So let's move away
We
from
all
that.
feel.
You don't have a
We all
question for
feel.
me on whether or not I'd like spreadsheets? You don't have that in this one too?
I think we all know that one. Heidi, how about you? How has the role changed for you in the past 3 to 5 years?
Well, I actually came into the GRC role in the last 3 to 5 years. Before, I was more technical. But from the beginning of coming into this role, I think we were more reactive, more like responding to findings and things like that. But today, we're more forward looking. And like Emily said, a lot of that is due to the advances in our tools and technology that we have available. Like we spend less time collecting artifacts. And now we're like just providing that continuous compliance in these automated tools and things like that. So we're doing like less of proving that we're compliant and more of designing resilience.
And that plays into helping shift the strategies.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that. The next question is, what responsibilities has the team taken on that weren't part of the role before, but now are super valuable to Seiso customers? Heidi, do you want to lead off with this one?
Sure. So I think we do more like strategic planning conversations now than we did before. Like, for example, with like vendor procurement, we advise early on in the processes now. And then we help like product and engineering departments think through security implications before launching a product or something like that. So we're more in that strategic planning. And like we mentioned before, we do play a larger role in that continuous compliance with the integration of tools and aligning frameworks. There is also that element of creating visibility for leadership. So we do a lot more of like dashboards and things like that to help with like decision making type things. And it's not just audits now.
Thank you. Emily, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, again, I would really just say, I mean, automation has been huge for me the past 1 to 2 years, and it's really just helped us with more continuous monitoring rather than just point in time checks. So instead of just periodically auditing controls, we're able to actually monitor them real time by utilizing these compliance tools. And this, because we're doing this, helps our customers avoid last minute efforts or scrambling to try and remediate deficiencies before an audit, or really just preventing gaps during which control failures may go undetected. So I think automation has just been a huge thing that has really helped us and really super valuable to our customers.
Yeah, and kind of to tie on to that a little bit more is exactly what you said. In the past, it was, we've got our spreadsheet, we've got our mapping of controls, we've got our evidence collection needs, and then maybe even some evidence from previous years and assessments. And then it would take even much longer to revalidate and recheck by manually pulling information. But just as you said, automation is bringing it all to a head where you can collect and put that information into the system on a regular basis. And as long as it's fully validated, once you put it in there, you can use it for your audit. You don't have to go back and collect it. It saves our customers a lot of time, and honestly saves them a lot of time having one-off meetings with us just to do screen shares and walk through manual collection and screenshots and things like that.
Great insight. And I know our customers appreciate the time back. So the next question is, are these changes driven by technology, leadership expectations, or regulatory pressure? Do you think the shift is happening across the industry or only in the more mature GRC programs? Heidi, do you want to lead off?
Sure. I think it's kind of driven by all three. For leadership, their expectations have shifted. They want to see more, like I said before, like they want to see more dashboards. They want to see more things that help with decision making. So we have that. The technology, and that shift is driven because of the continuous monitoring possibilities that we have now and automation again, but also the regulations have become more complex. So it's become more of our job to translate all of these things into business insights. So all of these technology improvements, the regulations changing, it's our job to translate that into business insight for leadership. So it's kind of like a combination of all.
Absolutely. That makes total sense. Emily, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with Heidi. It's definitely a combination of all three. There are definitely increasing regulatory pressures that are requiring our customers to demonstrate compliance with their information security management system. And this in turn is also raising those expectations from leadership. Thankfully, technology has evolved so that we can address these requirements more efficiently, but definitely, expectations are being raised. I think it's happening almost everywhere. I would say the pace and extent of adoption varies. Everywhere you look, it seems there are increasing regulatory demands and expectations for protecting information. Technology plays a role in virtually all daily operations anymore, and companies and organizations have to adapt to these advancements to avoid falling behind.
And talking about leadership expectations, great segue to our COO question. From an executive perspective, how has your expectation of GRC changed in the last 5 to 10 years? Eric.
5 to 10 years. Okay. Yeah. I mean, for me, I didn't actually work in a GRC department before I started taking on just security as compliance, working with Seiso per se. But our group, our technology group, was responsible for ensuring security controls are selected according to regulatory and customer requirements, and doing all that without actually burdening our execution teams. So there was a good amount of mapping effective controls using things like NIST in the industries that I've worked in, and other kind of localized cybersecurity initiatives. There was one that was actually the Canadian Royal Mounted Police cybersecurity initiative that we had to map to, but that brought down the controls that we had to put in place. So, but to answer your question, I used to expect GRC to primarily focus on checking the checkers and the implementers. We went through a lot of financial-based audits and enterprise resource planning system audits, and they're kind of like go through and double check to make sure access control was in place. That was well before MFA was really a big thing, and so a lot of those were audits. They were checking the checkers and implementers. But we also used to conduct system security audits that were specific to other systems at a more technical control level as well. But now GRC functions with more knowledge and engagement from the technical teams and software development security. The audit teams, the regulatory compliance teams are all kind of, broken down into this big grouping of security operations and security and compliance, right? And in the end, it keeps track of emerging threats, customer requirements are met, or at least tried to be met, and both private and public industry security expectations are handled in that way now. So it's much more than it was even 5 to 10 years ago, that's for sure.
An ever-changing industry. So moving into our focus on GRC automation, A big driver of the change to a more strategic GRC team is actually automation, tools that reduce manual work and free up time. What clerical or repetitive tasks have been most impacted by automation? How has automation changed how your team spends its time? And what new expectations come with that freed up capacity? Heidi, I'm going to have you lead this one off because you are GRC team manager.
Yeah, I think we've actually hit this already. The evidence collection, the control mapping, that has been dramatically reduced through automation. And like Emily had mentioned before, all of the manual things that we were doing, that clerical validation, those things have been very much reduced. So we're not manually pulling screenshots or manually chasing down logs. We have these integrated systems that monitor continuously. So that frees up a lot of our time and we can focus like on the actual risk posture.
The spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Emily, any thoughts to automation and GRC?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would say there's a lot of clerical tasks that, are now being taken care of by like automated reminders or being able to record or transcribe and AI generated summaries. This has all helped reduce a lot of that clerical work. And also with the compliance tools, I can set up automated reminders when evidence needs to be refreshed or when policies require review. So this eliminates the need for any manual tracking or putting reminders on my calendar or just relying on memory. And that really helps me ensure that tasks are completed on time. So that part has definitely had an impact on how our team spends their time. Without these manual repetitive tasks, we can focus on the higher value activities such as risk analysis and implementing remediation solutions. And in turn, we're able to address issues more quickly, and it allows us to operate in a more proactive and strategic manner, as Heidi was saying. And so we can just focus on continuous improvement instead of being reactive and task driven. And we have the capacity now to extend these controls and best practices to other areas of the business that might require additional attention since we have this freed up time.
Great insight. Eric, from your perspective, when automation reduces the manual work, what do you want the GRC teams to be focused on instead?
So my list of things that I want the GRC team to focus on more, instead of manual evidence collection and a bunch of spreadsheets everywhere, more so on focusing on system integrations for continuous monitoring, because there's always new opportunities to use GRC tooling and other ways to get information through things like APIs, for example. There is a custom side, there's a pre-built side with a lot of the tools that we run into day to day. And just expanding the integrations to get into the system can automatically pull things like access, so you can perform access reviews more thoroughly and more effectively, and also just monitoring some of the technical integrations that pull security data, straight up security data, like assets and vulnerabilities, for example. And all of these come into the workflow integration of how is my program going to be monitored through this automation opportunity rather than me taking a manual step to go collect the data. This is a constant thing that I try to work on with any of my customers or anybody that works at Seiso is there an opportunity to automate? Think of how we can solve that first, and then the rest can be focused on keeping up with compliance and responding to and dealing with new regulatory requirements and changes that happen all the time. And like Heidi said earlier, advising our customers at a more strategic level. So focus less on the evidence collection, focus more on automation and integrations, the technical aspect, so we can translate those things correctly. We can focus more on strategic items.
Makes total sense. Emily, right? Heidi, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I think also, like just continuing what Eric said, it also helps in us in that advisory capacity on maturing the programs. We have that extra time to be more strategic in that way and help them get to a more mature level in their security. So,
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. It's beyond just implementing the controls, but actually helping them mature as an organization by ensuring the controls are fully operationalized and embedded into everyday processes.
Yeah, without adding burden, without adding extra cycles or confusion, That's the biggest part that I think we can focus more on for sure.
That's great. And then how do you measure the value of GRC beyond we passed the audit? Eric, we'll have you lead off with this one.
Sure. Yeah, so from my perspective, all good measurements come with a sense of potential decline or progress. So when you ask about how we can measure the value of GRC beyond a past audit, it's really important to note that the audit success itself doesn't just entail passing. Success is also in the ability of the security leadership, GRC teams, security engineers, just to see where they can continuously improve. So we're not strictly talking about opportunities for improvement in an auditor's sense. We're talking about using value measurements to bring innovation and competitive advantage to security through business integration. And so to actually answer your question of how do we measure the value of GRC once we've passed an audit, we do so by making the audit a non-event year after year. Make it easy. Remove the burden from our customers to pass these audits on a regular basis. The fixes, the updates, the improvements are measured throughout the cycle as it would in an ISMS continuously, and it finds opportunities for simplification along the way with just having a true passion to fix, automate, unconfuse all year round, and ideally while avoiding security incidents wherever possible or managing the risk of everything else with ease.
And as a program manager, I appreciate the straightforwardness and lack of confusion there. Emily or Heidi, do you guys have anything to add to that thought?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I mean, we have to really think about what is the goal of what we're doing. I mean, audits are just one aspect of GRC. They only provide a point in time measurement of a small percentage of the information security management system. And the true value is the ability to reduce risk and strengthen security and compliance. And by doing this, organizations are better enabled to prevent incidents or respond to them more effectively, which is one of the main goals of why we're doing what we're doing, not just to pass audits, but to prevent incidents and respond to them effectively. So you kind of have to think about like, what is it, why are we doing what we're doing? And that's one of the like the top reasons we do what we do.
Yeah. I agree with Emily and Eric 100%. Like when the audit becomes that non-event, that's the maturity we're looking for. They're going to those audits and they're comfortable and things like that. And then like even beyond that, like Emily was saying, not only like the quicker responses to incidents, just having the fewer reoccurring incidents or reoccurring findings, that sort of stuff is what we look for beyond the audit.
And it's
If
been
you go
great.
back to your question, Lauren, of what did GRC look like 5 to 10 years ago, and how has it really evolved? Even 5 to 10 years ago, even today, a lot of people might think GRC is just policies that are written, put on the shelf, and those aren't very good policies to begin with. But as Emily and Heidi are talking about, and reiterating the fact of the non-event of the audit, it's really to get to a point where your management system is functioning. Your information security management system is functioning to the point that you are super confident in everything that's happening. And that's not just in policies. You'll see it in the security of your technology stack or the security of your organization to respond to threats effectively. Phishing attempts, right? There's security awareness training that goes into that, and there's testing and phishing training that goes into that. But until you manage the culture around security within the organization, you're not truly effectively managing phishing threats. And so, like Heidi said, you see that maturity over time. It becomes a non-event in the audit. People are super confident and they know what to do in the event of to protect the business, the data, their customers, and everything in between.
Definitely. And I've seen that in our multi-year clients, just the maturity and the ease that they begin to go through things. Any final thoughts from anybody?
I think these were really good questions, and I had to think critically about a couple of them. I couldn't just wing it. I had to prepare for some of them.
Prepare and get your coffee.
Yeah, multiple cups.
Yeah, it really showed me how much like automation has changed in the past couple of years too. That's like, thinking about these questions, it kind of kept going back to the same piece of like the automation and, focusing on the bigger picture and not just individual tasks we have to do.
I mean, even with the automation, really, like if we're looking at GRC tools, for example, only about half of our customers do that. So we still do a lot of manual work as well.
Which I think is a good turning point in the industry, that even in the last 2 or 3 years, 2 or 3 years ago, even at Seiso, like Heidi, we weren't really even talking about GRC automation as much as we do today. And it's come to a head. It's definitely come to the point where it's either going to be a good fit, or if you're not ready for that level of integration, you can always start somewhere. The goal being, having the confidence in your security program, responding to incidents and making sure you protect everything, gaining confidence in your customers, most importantly. Whether or not you use a tool for that, or yeah, I hate to say it, even still using spreadsheets functions that way, but there's definite benefits and there's definite pros and cons, whichever way you go.
Thank you all. As we wrap up today's discussion on automation and evolving expectations in GRC, it's clear that the demands on these teams are changing rapidly. In our next episode, we'll take this future further and explore the essential skills every GRC professional needs to thrive, covering everything from AI, governance, and data analytics to risk visualization and advisory expertise. We'll also dive into the common missteps organizations make as they try to build future GRC teams. Thank you to Eric and Emily for sharing their insights. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss part 2 of our upcoming conversation. Find this and all other episodes wherever you get your podcasts.